Eh, I need to put some sound effects eventually. But
Yeah.
good evening, everyone. My name is Abraham Zorrilla. I am the host of this streaming live event. I'm a community planner, city planner. I work for the city of Houston for over 10 years. Now I moved to the city of Irving, Texas. Um, I've been doing community outreach and engagement for as a planner. I'm very involved with CNU and CNU Latino. And the purpose of this event is basically talk to somebody who has the experience of working in the most diverse city in the whole country. Their experience also the biggest city that doesn't have zoning. However, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have regulations or ordinances because it does. And also somebody who is very successful in with his urban planning firm and doing a lot of activities and events to give back to the community. So with that, I would like to introduce you to Carlos Espinoza. Hey, how's it going, Carlos?
Thank you, Abraham. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Just thankful to be here and, you know, happy to be part of the Latino communities that are planners here in Texas, especially here in Houston, and just be happy to be here, honestly. So,
No,
thank you for the invite.
thank you so much for accepting the invitation. When I was putting this together, I was thinking who should be my first guest, and I didn't realize I know you for so many years now. Uh, Carlos used to work
Yes.
for the city of Houston, and I think after that for a few years, and then after that he went to other working for other cities and organizations. He will talk a little bit about that to the point that he has his own firm and he's enjoying life. Currently, he is in Brazil, working hard, of course, but at the
Yes.
same time, be able to enjoy life. And I would like him to share his experience, challenges, and opportunities that he found by being a planner here in city of Houston, and maybe compare what it is to be a planning or do planning in an area with no zoning. But with that, Carlos, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about you, like where you're from, and how you became a planner.
Yeah, thank you. I'm from Mexico originally, so I was born in Mexico, and we moved here when I was a kid. So I grew up in Spring Branch. I always tell this story, even when I was applying to planning school. I grew up in Spring Branch. That's kind of when the whole Katy Freeway reconstruction project was happening. You know, the biggest freeway in the world, people call it. So they were rebuilding I-10 or the Katy Freeway from Memorial Park, more or less that area in Galleria, all the way to the city of Katy. So I grew up next to it, trying to figure out who's making these decisions, what's happening. You know, it was like a normal highway. It became this monster concrete jungle next to where we were growing up, in a sense. So it was like a good eye-opening experience. Was it middle school? Yeah, I was in middle school or high school when that was happening. So I was, riding the bus from Spring Branch, going to Memorial on the other side to Memorial schools, and then going back home, and you would see the freeway growing wider and wider and wider as the years went by. And then that was happening at the same time. The city of Houston, now I found out they were changing Chapter 42, which is their development code. They were allowing townhomes to be outside Beltway 8. So I lived right there on Beltway and I-10 on the west side of Houston. So I lived outside, and that's where people started buying these homes, and they started building townhomes. And we lived there, and it was a beautiful street. It's called Sherwood Forest, and it was a forested street. It looks like you were out in the country. It was like 1 acre homes, and then some townhomes and apartment complexes. It was beautiful. Now you Google it, Sherwood Forest Drive, and it looks like townhome
That's
central.
gone. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so it's kind of like asking who's making these decisions for the freeway, who's making the decisions for the townhomes. I didn't know there were townhomes. There was just like new housing that we didn't see that outside the city, in a sense, because it was Spring Branch. It was mostly big homes and then apartment complexes. So that's kind of what started my intuition, or my, you know, what is this? What does that mean? Who's making these decisions? And once I got into high school and college, it was like, what do I do with this? Into inquisitive questions and ideas that I have. And I wanted to be a landscape architect in the beginning, and then I found planning through one of my professors, Dr. Sweeney at Texas A&M University. He already passed away, but he was like a lot of the people that are working here in Houston. They went through him. People that many of us know here in the Houston area that work at APA Houston or the Houston Galveston Area Council. I went to school with them, and we all went through Dr. Sweeney. So it was like a great way to get into planning at Texas A&M University. So it was like just the beginning of it.
No, that's great. I mean, I think it's important to have a professor or somebody who guide you to where you are right now. I mean, I had that same experience at Texas Southern University. But with that, and going so after college, do you work? You go to? Did you go to Houston? That was your first job as a planner, or were you somewhere else before the city of Houston?
I always came back home. So I did a couple of internships, but I just did a webinar with APA National for Students. And we were talking about how internships are important. So I did an internship at the city of College Station, Texas. I did an internship at the Woodlands Township. So it's kind of like figuring out, do I want to do transportation, parks, planning? And then I got into the city of Houston internship at the planning department. This is like 2009, a couple of years ago.
Oh yeah.
With yeah. And I got in, and I was doing transportation. So, I didn't know what I wanted to do in planning. I just kind of was trying to figure it out, which was my field. And then I met development services. I was just asking questions. I always ask questions. I always ask, what does it mean? I've always been like that. So I went and met now, who was at one point the assistant director. You can help me with her name. I'm really bad with name. Jennifer. What was her
Oh,
name?
Austin. Jennifer Austin.
Jennifer Austin. Yeah, Jennifer Austin and Dipti Marther.
Yes.
They were sort of new in a sense there, but they were helping the interns. So I went and helped them, and that's how I found about what development service does in Houston. So I liked that, but I didn't know how to get into that. Then I finished my internship, went back to grad school, finished grad school. And then I got a job somewhere, but it wasn't the right fit. And then the city of Houston called me, and I got the job at the city of Houston. And then I met you.
Yeah. That was 2016, 17, perhaps.
Yeah, years later. Yeah, like from when I did my internship to the job,
Yeah.
it was a while. Yeah,
I didn't know you were back then in 2009.
yeah,
Yeah. Wow.
yeah. I met a lot of people back then.
They're still
It was a
there.
different world. Yeah, some of them are still there. Yeah.
Yeah, true, true. So let me ask you this, because I got this question when I came here to the north part of Texas. Did Texas A&M prepare you to do planning for the city of Houston? Because normally
Mm.
college teach you about comprehensive plan, zoning, rezoning, land use, and all those things that Houston don't see. Uh, but when you start working for the city of Houston, where you, I mean, I know you had that internship and all that from the past, but uh, that would you feel prepared when you went to Houston? You were like, what is this?
No, I mean, I think A&M prepares you for any job in a sense. So I got to do comprehensive planning with. I think we even got an award for that for the city of Gonzales, the APA award for the Texas state level back then. I think it was like 2011, 2012. And then we did comprehensive planning, we did GIS, we did neighborhood planning, we did law classes at A&M. So it was like a good way to get exposed to a lot of things.
Okay.
And when I got to the city, it was learning the ordinance in a sense, but you were able to understand, setbacks, parking requirements, lot size requirements, and then you learn little by little. And then a good way that the city Houston Planning Department has, I don't know if they still do, you get a mentor when you go in.
Mhm.
So another good thing that was lucky for me is that my friend that still works there, that I went to school with, was my mentor, and she was working at the planning department too. She's still there, Araceli Rodriguez. She's still there, so it's
Yeah.
like a good way to get the connection going and to get started. You learn little by little, but
Yeah.
I feel like I was prepared. It was just the public speaking part that eventually you get to speak at planning commission. That was something that was different, and then they tell you at school, but you're just gonna get for it. Gotta get in front of the microphone and just be ready for it. I think.
Yeah. And I didn't mean to question the school per se. I mean, Texas A&M is a great school. Don't get me wrong, but I just people ask me if if like when I went, or like for them, the idea of comprehensive plan, and the type of planning they do with city with zoning, the idea of not having zoning is something that mind blowing for them. But no,
Yeah.
I mean, you're an excellent planner. I'm sure you got most of your knowledge and education from Texas. I mean, and yeah, I said the city of Houston is good at training you, I guess, when you start there, because when I started it, which is as a different division,
Yes.
it's completely different. But yeah, going presenting for planning commission, there's nothing to prepare you for that other than just do it.
Yeah,
That,
I mean,
that,
they in this sense they give you baby steps. You go in, you present like the easy items, and then you'll do more speak. Well, for us, like you will do a little more speaking part, and then
yeah,
eventually they'll give you like an actual project, and
that's for
like
your
you said, you
division.
just
My
yeah,
division
for
was
you.
great too. So for people who don't know, I used to work dealing with minimal outside ordinances. It's the only ordinance that has some land use restrictions, all community
Mm,
based, and because of that, could be a little political. People in support, in opposition, and just so you know, the state is working on a new law that my mandate cities to allow subdivision of smaller lots and ADUs,
mm,
and also will also include what we call the minimal outsize ordinance. They also will ask or will tell cities to have this type of application where people can show support if they want to preserve the lot size character of the neighborhood, basically preventing lots from being subdivided into smaller lots. But we can talk that
mm.
in the future. But excuse me. So Carlos, with all of that, with experience of Houston, I think next you went to the city of Baytown after that, or
Yes, yeah. I went to the city of Baytown for a little bit, so it was a different monster, you would say. I would say, because I got there, it was less work. It's a smaller city. I was used to doing 20 applications every 2 weeks. Here you get there, it's like you get one or two zoning cases a month. And it was zoning, so it was learning how to understand zoning, how they work. They just had a new zoning code, so it was a lot of phone calls, a lot of community work of sharing the information. But it's also one of those drawbacks I saw was that as they changed their zoning law, everything was applicable immediately to everybody. So if they don't want any more carports, they would have to be teared down in a sense. In Houston, they get grandfather in a
yeah.
sense. But over there, they were there, and the ordinance says no carports, they have to be gone because the new zoning code says so. I don't know if that's applicable everywhere else, but that's how it was in Baytown a couple years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did that go?
It was a lot of like community work, doing meetings, but also upset people, especially Baytown is like 55% Latino. A lot of them don't speak Spanish. I mean, English.
Mhm.
And a lot of the outreach that happened, which was a negative trait I saw, was that it was all in English, most of it. And then a lot of our people, Latino people, work 2 3 jobs sometimes, and they don't have time to go to the public meetings. So they just get a letter from the city: you have to remove your carport, you have too many windows, you have trash in the front, or something. You cover your garage. It was like little things that became nuances for the city, but they didn't know this happened. You made the changes as the city, but your population didn't know about it. So for me,
So
that was like a negative trait that I saw in that
yeah.
aspect. Yeah.
So did the city go to their houses and knock doors and put stickers saying, "Hey, you need to do this, you need to remove this or change this"?
So we would have to do drives as the planners. It was only two of us. We would drive,
The
and
two
then
of
if
you
you
in the planning department or in
well,
your division?
planning department was four. That was
Mhm.
it. Director, assistant director, and I was a senior planner, and then we had a planner. That was it. And we
Wow.
would drive, and then just for legal purposes, if you find a house here, you would have to go to the next intersection, so it doesn't look like you're targeting somebody. So it
Yeah,
looks
yeah,
like
yeah. I see what you're
you're
saying.
covering the whole area. So you find something, you would have to go to the next corner, to the next corner, and then that way it looks like you're just driving by.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
what we got to, yeah. So it was a lot of that, and also understanding that Baytown has a different population, and the city wants the cities want taxes, they want revenue, so they were trying to change their ordinance to allow more. fancy homes, from what I understood.
Excuse me. How about the council members? How was council with the city of Baytown? Were they very proactive, liberal, conservative?
I didn't really interact much with them, but they were pretty proactive. And since there was a zoning case, different from Houston, most if you're changing, development on the regular basis, it doesn't go to city council, it just goes to planning commission. In Baytown, if there was a public hearing, you'd have to go to a zoning board, then planning commission, and then city council. So instead of you doing something in 2 weeks in Houston or a month, maybe you're taking 3 months to do it in Baytown. Or from what I understand from other colleagues in other cities, maybe like in Irving too, where you're at, or Dallas, or it takes a couple months just for them to change, if they allow it, to go
When
through the process.
when I went to the CNU conference, I don't think it was the last one, but one of the CNU conference that I attended, I was talking to somebody from Austin. They were saying that variance could take up to 6 months. When in Houston, it's what, it's a month the most?
2 weeks, like
A
if we
week,
get it
yeah.
right.
I mean, they don't. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
true, true. So
Like right now,
Mhm.
yeah, today I was meeting with the city with 3 different variances, and we're like, as soon as we get the survey, we draft them, we can submit them next week, and then you know we get them approved hopefully before Christmas.
that will be your own gift, right? There you go.
Yeah, I mean for my clients, but hopefully
Of
yes.
course, true, true. Yeah, I was very surprised too when I came here to Irving and all the protocols and boards and council members, and then goes to city council so for something to get approved. But then,
Yes.
so with City of Houston doesn't have zoning, but everything goes by what is in Chapter 42. Chapter 42 is a list of ordinances that dictate, how to develop a street. There's with that you have the minimal lot size ordinance, which is an ordinance within an ordinance. So that type of ordinance it gets to city council because it has to be approved by them. And then maybe Carlos, you can explain this better than me. But I mean, why don't you do that? Why don't you tell people what is Chapter 42 and how the city follow those rules to dictate what the things that could happen in the city?
Yes. Can I share my screen really quick, or
Yeah, if you can. I mean, you know
let
how
me
to use
see?
this platform better than me for sure. The
Yeah, I
first
used
time.
to do, what do you call it? Facebook Lives on here. Let's see.
Is it working?
It's asking me to modify something.
Do I have to give you permission or something, or you're good to go?
Um, Let me try. Yeah, I
Well,
don't think it's gonna let me.
oh,
But I just had a map of Houston. Yeah, I can email it to you really quick.
mm, well, I'm not sure how to. I'm so new at this that I don't know how to do this, but
I
go
just
ahead, go
send you
ahead.
the link.
Okay.
Yeah, if you can open it, maybe. But yeah, so Houston has, as many of us here watching, has the city limits, and it has the ETJ, which is the extraterritorial jurisdiction, which is the future annexation area, and that they control all that, which is roughly 2,000 square miles. Did you get the presentation? Yeah.
Which email do you send it to?
Oh, in the chat.
Oh, in the chat.
Yeah.
I'm so new at this. Okay. Oh, I need access.
Oh man.
Okay. All right. It says I need access. I should send it to you.
Okay. I should be able to see it now. Okay.
Okay.
Can you see it?
Yeah. Give me just 1 second when I'm organizing this. So I guess I can just share my screen.
Yes.
Uh, 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 I don't know if you can see what I'm seeing. I see your picture. Can you
Not
see my
yet.
screen?
No,
Not yet.
no,
Oh, how about now?
it's loading. Yes, perfect.
Okay. So just let me when to go next, and I'll change the slides.
Yeah, if you go to page 10 or 9, or slide 10, 9.
Okay.
Yeah, so just quickly, Houston is not like the Wild West like people think. There's no zoning, of course, so the government or the city is not telling you what to build, where to build it. It's more like a free range in a sense, which I've liked over the years. It kind of brings this community together to either fight or accept things as things are changing, but there are rules to it. So they have the Chapter 42, which is the development code for construction of homes and subdivision of property and commercial properties. Chapter 33, landscaping, for trees, bushes, and the minimum requirements for that. Which this only came into effect in the late 90s. So before 1990s, there was no landscaping requirements. Chapter 26 is the parking requirements, also came into effect in the 90s. So before that, anything that you see in Houston, it's definitely like the Wild West for parking and landscaping. Chapter 42 came around the 80s, early 80s. So there was some other ordinances before Chapter 42 the city had over the years since 1900, but Chapter 42 is the latest that the city has been using since the 80s. So it's almost, like 50 years old in a sense. In 2033, it'll be 50 years old. It's been going around for a while. So everything that you've seen in Houston almost in the last 50 years is under Chapter 42. If you go to the next map, that's what the city regulates. So the city of Houston limits are the dark pink color, and then the orange color are the bubbles out into the county, which covers roughly 80% of Harris County, which is the third most populous county in the country. The city controls the development code for almost 2,000 square miles, which is their ETJ, or their future annexation area, or extra territorial jurisdiction, which is given by the state. Cities have this right. Now they changed the legislature about that, so now you're able to de-annex from the city ETJ now. I've seen something I don't know if you've seen it, Abraham, but there's been something in the news that developers in Fulshire, because Fulshire is next to Houston on the west side,
Yes. Uh-huh.
just they de-annex thousands of acres. They didn't want to be under the city of Fulshire. So this could even potentially happen in Houston. I haven't
Yeah.
talked to any of the developers that I work with, but there's been major developers, up in northwest, and west side of the Harris County that are happening, or even by Lake Houston with the Grand Parkway on the northeast being opened up. So potentially there could be areas that they might want to leave the Chapter 42 development code. I don't know.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. And then the next slide kind of shows the story that I was talking about in the beginning, how the city has been changing the regulations from, allowing more density and smaller lot sizes and different housing types in the city over the years. So it started happening around the 2000s, late 90s, inside the 610 Loop, which they used to call the urban area. Then they expanded it in the early 2000s to the inside Beltway 8. And that's kind of when I wanted to be a planner, when they changed it to the whole city around 2005, 2008. So it started little by, they did baby steps in a sense, because you might want to change the whole code, but it's not going to take, it's not going to be picked up by developers very well, or the community. And
Yeah.
I think that kind of triggers what Abraham was working at the city of Houston, the minimum lot size, as they were changing these communities throughout Houston were saying, you're changing it, but you're not working with us. So I think that's how minimum lot size and minimum block applications came around, to protect communities in Houston that don't have deed restrictions, like, because there's no zoning. That's the only way to protect them. And deed restrictions have racial and historical guidelines.
Yeah.
So basically, all these communities that were being affected for cheap land don't have deed restrictions because they used to be Black and brown communities. unlike the highly protected white communities in Houston.
It is. It is. I remember when I started reviewing the restrictions because part of the to qualify for this minimal lot size ordinance, the area should not have any protections. So if they have if they have the restrictions, and if the restrictions uh, establish lot size protection, then they don't qualify. But then when you go over the restrictions and what I saw there, I was just shocked. I mean, I know that some of the restrictions were back from 1920s, 30s, uh,
Yes.
but the language that they use to prevent certain people to acquire property in the area is, yeah, obviously it's not enforceable anymore, thank God. But I was just surprised of finding the kind of language in such legal documents. But yeah, are you there? I cannot see you, so I hope you're still there. Carlos? Or did I lose you? Are you there, Carlos?
You see me?
I see you and I hear you now. Yes. Okay, so now talking about your work and your experiences with the city, I believe you went to some nonprofit organizations as well.
Yes. Yeah. So I left the city. Because once you get the hang of being a planner there, you get the hang of it.
Yeah.
And well, I mean, I'm thankful. I learned what I know now from there. So it was like I learned it, and it was, I got to a certain stage. It was like, well, what else is there to do? So I met a couple people, and then I got introduced to. I work with a developer, so I was working with a developer doing single family construction, and then I got into not a nonprofit that does low income housing. It's called Avenue CDC. They're pretty known in Houston. They do a lot of nonprofit community work. I got in when the pandemic happened, and all the community work turned into more, COVID related. So we were doing food distributions, school visits, vaccines. So it was like a rewarding experience to do planning, but from a community perspective. So we were doing planning work without the planning word in it, in a sense. It was more community development and trying to figure it out, the best ways to keep the community intact with COVID happening while doing virtually. So that's why we were used to doing a lot of these virtual one-on-one meetings. We were bringing support, with mental health. I remember doing like yoga on Facebook Live. It was nice, but it was funny. We were doing more like a mental health series on, kids being at home all the time. What do you do with kids? You have to work. A lot of the parents have to work from home or didn't have a job. And doing food distributions in the safe way. We did a Christmas distribution with 500 people.
Mhm.
We were doing murals to kind of capture the historic moment of COVID happening in the community. So it was it was a good way to bring that in. And I've always been connected to the community. I worked in the north side of Houston, or near north side. When I was in the city of Houston, I did the Hogan Street walkable places, which is in north side, which is like a different set of ordinances for certain streets or neighborhoods. And then when I was with the developer, we were doing a lot of work in north side too. So I've always been connected to the community for some reason. I don't know. So I've always been, even to this day, I still work there with people, as my
Yeah.
own firm. We do community work, we do murals, I've even been doing projects with developers that I've been telling them, hey, there's investment happening here. The city's putting money into it. The management district's putting money. The tourists are putting money. So let's come to the north side. So it's always been a good way to stay connected in the area.
And so talking about walkable places, and we can talk about livable places as well. But I think that one, and this is just my opinion, but one thing, good thing about not having zoning is being able to establish new ordinances for specific topics and for walkable places or livable places. It gives the opportunity of creating zoning, or I'm sorry, not zoning, creating a new ordinance for the benefit of the community without worrying about rezoning, establishing zoning cases, or worry about the future land use. That things that I see now with the city of Irving. Not saying that one is better than the other one, I just personally think, through my experience, that establish new ordinances without zoning is and has it brings people together, because we need a lot of people input, and with that community meetings and stuff like that. But establish a really strong connection with the community. So that's something that I'm very proud of, because being by working for the city of Houston, I was able to also connect with the community, establishing ordinances that will benefit or protect the neighborhood, or make changes that improve the quality of life. Um, but yeah, I don't know if what's your thought of that, Carlos.
Uh, I would say, working in the north side with Hogan Street Walkable Places District, it was a challenge. The boundary changed over time because of the input from the community, and then but the community was used to working with the city. They did complete communities, which is a program by the city to bring in more economic development into certain neighborhoods that have been forgotten over time.
Hmm.
Just a quick version of what it
Yeah.
means. So they were used to that. It was a lot of bringing together and education part of it, right? Like you could tell people, hey, we're trying to take away your parking requirements, but in your mind you think, well, I need parking. What do you mean? So you have to explain that you just give freedom in a sense, which is I like. You kind of give freedom to your restaurant, to your home, to if you don't want, you choose not to have parking, you could have it. So it was like a menu of things that they could choose from, like no parking, no setback requirements, and each district would be different. And now years later, I think I saw something in the news a couple months back. In Chinatown, they did the first official walkable place district, not coming from the city, but from a developer that took advantage of that. Instead of going to the city, like you were saying,
Hmm.
or or the county through multiple variances and possibly rezoning, if we have rezoning, here they just call their huge acres of property that they had. They call their development code for parking, height, setbacks, and everything in between for urban design. And they tell the cities what we want. We chose from your menu. Your menu you approved years ago in 2015, I believe. So it's been almost 10 years, or more than 10 years. And now we're coming back and saying we like this. And the city has to go through it, but they pretty much have to approve it because they're following the rules from the
Yeah.
menu that the city put together. And the menu is it's flexible, but they give you options. If you want to have streets with 40 feet, 50 feet, 60-foot right of ways, you want to have 4-foot, 10-foot sidewalks, you can choose that from your district in a sense.
Okay. Well, so that's good. I mean, hopefully there's more
Yeah.
walkable districts in Houston. And it's funny you
And,
mentioned about complete. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was gonna say it would be applicable because you've seen all these town centers happening all around the country, right? You have like in Dallas, you have like what is it called? Mockingbird Station next to the TOD line. You have Santa Monica Pier, Promenade. That's like a walkable place district that happened
Mhm.
before this concept was around. Or Houston, you have City Center that the developer made it happen, but they had to go through multiple loopholes to make it happen.
Mhm.
Or the Woodlands Township, they have their downtown district, which it's impossible to make without going through multiple variances and
Yeah.
parking and all that. But if you have these districts that you can make from a menu, it's so much easier for them to make. So I think they're taking advantage of that.
And now we went through all your experience in the public sector. How or when how it happened that you decided to have your own urban firm?
I always wanted to. I always tell people that since I was in school, I had a dream. I was like, I want to do something. I didn't know what it was. I remember I wanted to I wanted to sell homes. I wanted to build homes. I wanted to do transportation. I didn't know what I want. I was 17, 20. I don't know. Then eventually, I always had the idea. And then once I got to the city of Houston, I found a job. I learned that thing that, Chapter 42 and all those rules. And then I left, and then people were contacting me on LinkedIn. I've always been, I mean, I don't know if you know, maybe you know, but I've always been like a nice person. I always try to talk to people nice. They'll call me. I would follow up with them. I always try to be, like a good planner in a sense. So I think that kind of stick with people. And then once I left, they were looking for me once I left the city, and they didn't have my phone. You can't give your personal phone away, nothing. but they would find me on LinkedIn or Facebook and message me, "Hey, I need your help because you used to help me with this question or that." I'm like, "Well, you got to go to the city because I don't know how to do this." So eventually, one guy, his name is Tyrone McDaniel. He's a developer in Houston. He messaged me. He said, "I need you to help me with this," and it kind of started with one person. He started telling someone else, and then I also had a mentor that was doing this already, so she helped me with some contacts, and then started happening from there. Little by little. Well, I mean, I had the idea, but it wasn't something I was expecting. It was one person led to another, and then I had a connection, and then I had the knowledge that I learned from all the people at the planning department. So it just made it happen. But I always had the idea that I wanted to do this. So I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I know I wanted to be a planner. So it was definitely going to be a planning firm. And then eventually it switched to more. I still do development, but we also do community work. We got hired by MIG, which is a big planning firm that that wanted to be in the Houston market. So we started doing community planning around Houston. So it was like a good way to start doing urban design, community development, and then land development too.
So would you say that having all this knowledge about the Chapter 42 and your experience with the city of Houston help you to get to where you are right now? Like people
Yes.
wanted your knowledge, your experience to be able to, help them with their ideas or developments or things that they want to happen in Houston.
Yes. I think I mean, there's so many people that go through that department.
Yeah, that's
But
true.
it's like, do you want to use it or do you want to just say, I used to work there. So to me, it was like, I was there for a couple of years, almost 4. Do I use this or do I just go to the next job and then keep working? And then people were asking after I left, whether I was nice or not. They were contacting me privately after, and I think it was just meant to be. It was, all the little things that the knowledge, being able to meet people, and then them contacting me that kind of made it happen.
So do you face any challenges opening your urban firm? There's something that you didn't know at the time that now you do and you wish you would know at the time?
I mean, it was more of a starting the business, because you're used to just working. You go to work, you
Mhm.
clock in, clock out, you get a check, and that's it. So like doing the business, opening the government paperwork, applying for the city as a minority business, doing your taxes, paying people, contractors. It was mostly of the business perspective, not the work,
Right.
the
Mostly, yeah.
planning, the planning work. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, you're working on this side as a city, and now you're on this side as the consultant. You know a lot of from the other side, but now you gotta look at it from this side. Like today I had the meeting with the planning department. I have a client. She wants to replat property, but she wants to fit as many townhomes as she can. So she wants to make the most money off of it. So I'm trying to figure out the best street design, and the city was giving us some input, but it was different from what it was needed. So it was like, how do we find the middle ground from her making money, from the city, from also giving like a good design? Because that's something that I like from being on this side, that you could talk directly to the decision maker, in this case the developer or whoever's financing the project,
Mhm.
and we can tell them, hey, you could do townhomes, but you don't have to do just garages in the front. You can do them from the side. You could do a beautiful park in the middle with your engineer, instead of just doing a huge detention pond in the back that nobody's going to use or see. You know, and you see these kind of projects in Houston where they're using the flooding or detention requirements
Mhm.
to make it a beautiful park, a beautiful lake that's not just used for flooding or when water is needed to be stored. It's also like an amenity or a space for you to live in that community. So that's a good way for you to make a change, in a sense. That's how I see it. Because when you're a planner, you just get the projects, and when you work there, you want to talk to the developer, but it's sort of late because they've been, you know, investing time and money and ideas for months before it gets to the city.
Yeah.
So to me, it's fun because you get to do it. You get to be part of the process, and it also influence the process with the decision maker.
And talk about townhouses and replatting and all that. Um, in Houston, the smaller lots that you can subdivide into is 1,400 square feet. Is that right?
Yes.
If you subdivide the lots, it can be as small as 1,400 square feet. However, I think there is a case now that the new lots are 1,200 square feet. Is that right?
Yes. So yeah, we got the first case in Houston. We got 4 lots for 1,200 square feet. So it was a big win. It was a good project. Let me see if I have a picture of it. I'll have to share with you.
Yeah, yeah, of
but
course.
um, but it was a good way to bring in, more density to a smaller site, and also, like I said, we're on this side of the aisle, so for my client to make more money. We don't ever say that, but that's the main goal too.
Of
They
course,
want to
yeah.
make more money. They, by the rules, they could, fit 3 homes in there, but we got a variance. We just send you an email with a picture. You got a variance. We, you know, knowing having the knowledge from the city, they wanted beautiful sidewalks. They wanted more eyes on the street. Um, that quote in that book that's been around for in the planning world. We have more
Mhm.
eyes on the street. It's safer to walk at night. It's also safer community. So that's what the city wants and would like to see in the community. So we asked the developer to add more windows, more beautiful trees, more interactive architecture. So it was a good way to convince staff and also convince the planning commission to give us this variance. So it was more or less an easy variance. I thought it would be more difficult, but just those design choices the developer agreed to made planning commission agree with us, and it was a easy approval in a sense.
Okay, let me share the screen.
Sure.
All right. Do you see it?
Yes.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay, so this is it was replatted into 4 lots. So it's a shared driveway. You want to talk a little bit about this, the design, and so you have a sidewalk of 5 feet, 10 feet high for the first floor. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah, I can
Okay.
hear you. Yeah, this is the urban design choices that the developer made that the city has in their guidebooks for walkable places, which doesn't really apply here, but it was a good, guidelines for us to show, hey, we're trying to meet more of your new design choices and requirements for certain areas, but we want to bring this into communities that are happening and redeveloping. So it was bringing, more walkable, beautiful windows and doors facing the streets, more sidewalks, trees that will be protecting pedestrians from traffic, accidents in case a car runs into them, or they
Mhm.
will bring more shade to and more green space. And then on the side, I don't know if you have a picture of the side, but on the side you have yeah, there you go.
Mhm.
We added the green wall facing the garage. It's not just you looking at cars. It was a good way
Yeah.
to bring in more interaction to the pedestrian realm from the city. So like those little points that you start adding, the windows, the trees, the beautiful sidewalks, and more windows, so you have more eyes on the street and it feels more inviting to walk by, is
Mhm.
what gives people, and the planning commission gives more of an idea that you're not just building here to make money, but you're also bringing in quality Houstonian housing to everybody who wants to live here.
And this was done because of livable places? Oh,
So
that's not.
this was inspired by Livable Place. This is actually in Acres Homes, which is a complete community in Houston in northwest, yeah, kind of like northwest.
Mhm.
So it's mostly undeveloped properties out there right now, but this
Yeah.
was bringing higher density to the community inspired by Livable Places.
Okay. Will you mind explaining to people that are watching this what livable places is?
Yes, I have it on my presentation. Let me see.
Yeah. Let me see.
It's
I think I have it open. Let me stop sharing this and go back to your presentation.
should be slide 12. But yeah,
Yeah.
livable places was a new set of rules that the city started working on in late 2017, 2018. Um, the challenge was to bring in more middle income or middle housing that's a term that's been used across the country. And that just means like more housing choices for Houstonians, right? An apartment or ADU, in the back of a home, or you could have a duplex, which that's already by law allowed in Houston. Or you can have a triplex, a quadruplex. So it was like different versions of housing, not just one housing type, but a lot of the cities across the country have, in Texas especially, just single family housing, which a lot of us can afford, but a lot of us cannot afford. So like, how do we have started homes from apartment complexes or little apartments on sites, from duplexes to townhomes? So it's like, how do we bring more diversity to the Houstonian market? And then when you talk to developers, this is what they want too, because housing prices start going up. And if you start building those homes on the upper left, which is a home with an apartment, that's going to be $400,000 or $500,000 if you live
Mhm.
inside the city. So if you start doing a duplex, a fourplex, they start going down to 300, 250. If you start doing the smaller courtyard development, which is new concept to Houston, which is the bottom right, that becomes a little more affordable. It could be 150, 180, 200,000 for a nicer one. It's a smaller one, share parking, share green space, but that's a good starting home for a lot of people, especially here in Houston as prices are going up.
Yeah.
Uh,
And one big change that I saw with livable places is that normally with ADUs or garage apartments, the rule was that it could be up to 900 square feet. Now those
yes,
ADUs could be up to 1,500 square feet. And with those
I think
townhouses,
it's 1,800. Yeah,
18?
yeah, 1,800,
Oh,
which is
wow. Yeah.
home.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, that's great. And then with townhouses, and the reason I asked you about livable places, because I know that the new rule is that any townhouse that's sitting on the street or adjacent to the sidewalk, it needs to have the entrance facing the street. Before, it wasn't, people normally, or developers, or the townhouse that we used to see in Houston, the entrance of the house was facing the driveway. Now, if the
Yes.
townhouse is adjacent to the sidewalk, then the entrance should be facing the street instead of the driveway, and have windows or things, basically having more eyes on the street. Is that
Hmm.
am I
But
right?
yes, you're 100% right. But technically, that rule was already there. I
Oh,
used to
okay.
work at permitting. I used to work at the permitting center too for a little bit.
Oh, okay.
And they would it would say you have to have a main door facing the street, but they would just let it go and just have a door. So you can drive around Houston and you'll see doors facing the street, but like you're saying, is not the main door. And
Mhm.
also developers were choosing, one design type, and they will just, if they're doing three homes, it'll be the same design. So they'll have the main entrance facing the interior driveway, which is a copy of each the other units or site or floor plans. But then the one on the street will just have a door, which could be a door to the kitchen or door to the garage, because the city wasn't enforcing the main door. But yes,
Okay.
now they are enforcing it,
Yes.
and
Okay.
we'll see. I haven't seen any new ones, but hopefully in the next couple months or a year, we'll see new ones.
Yes, and it's funny how, excuse me, this is a challenge in other cities. I think Dallas recently approved their new comprehensive plan that welcome more diversity on the type of houses you can build, but they were a big pushback on the number of units that you can have per lot. And like in Houston now, with livable places, we can have up to 8 units. And I don't even know how to say that. Is it eightplex? I don't know how you call that. Um, and now I think I just saw recently that one law that was approved, that now that lot can have two duplexes. It's not a fourplex. It's two duplexes
Yes.
in one lot.
Well, that's a lot of the clarification that's been happening. So like that unit on the upper right, that fourplex or
Uh-huh.
quadruplex, I guess you would call it.
Mhm.
They the clarification after they approved the ordinance was it doesn't have to be one building. It could be four different units split up and it still be a quadruplex, or it could be one unit like the one in the picture. Or like you're saying, it could be two duplexes and it's still four units. So it still be considered four units. It doesn't mean they have to be all together. It could be four separate buildings or one building or two buildings. So that's
No,
probably
that,
the
that's
example you're mentioning.
Yeah. So, for example, for the purpose of the minimum lot size, just really quick, for
Yeah.
a house, for a lot that has 3 units, which could be a house and 2 garage apartment, we would call it multifamily, right? I mean, it's not
Yeah.
one building with 3 units. It's actually a house and 2 garage apartment, and those garage apartments or
Mhm.
ADUs don't need to be attached. So if you have 3 units in one lot, we would call it multifamily. So that's how we do it in Houston, or how they do it in Houston. I'm not in Houston anymore.
I wonder if they changed that after this, for minimum lot size, because now this is considered single family. All these housing types are considered single family.
I doubt it, because you need to. I mean, the language of the minimum lot size ordinance is based on the number of units. So if you have uh, 3 units, for the purpose of the minimum lot
Yes.
size, will be considered multifamily. Now, I haven't seen any amendment on the ordinance, and I don't think livable places would just automatically change the rules of the minimum lot size ordinance.
Hmm.
I doubt that. Um,
There's anybody watching, please let us know.
yeah, let us know. I mean, I can make a
Yeah,
phone
because
call and put some comments now tomorrow. but
right. I
yeah,
wonder.
that would be interesting.
Yeah, I'm assuming yes, because they changed because minimum lot size is under Chapter 42, and then they changed the definition of single family. So it might
True.
be. I don't know.
But Chapter 42 is an ordinance within an ordinance. So
Oh
it's
yes.
that's why City Council approve it, not Planning Commission. But I'm not with that. I'm not 100% sure. I mean, who knows? Maybe. I mean, I'm still in contact with my former coworkers, and I'm sure that they will have say something by now if that was the case.
Yes.
Because they still call me for some questions, um,
See, that's
but yeah.
exactly what happened to me.
But well, I know it's been almost an hour, and I know you're in
Yes.
Brazil, and it's late. But I don't want to finish this stream event without asking you how it is to do community planning or outreach and engagement in such a diverse city. What's your perspective? What is it difficult? Is easier being Latino? Does that help? Does it make a difference? I don't know. What's your point of view on that?
I would say it definitely helps right now. I recently joined the board for APA Latino uh, nationwide, so I'm the secretary for the next 2 years on their board, and I think you know our group, and then just being Latino and being an immigrant to this country, and then working in this industry is how do we bring everybody to the table? Because you sometimes you as a person you feel like left out in some conversations too. So like that example that I brought from Baytown, you would talk to all these neighbors that they didn't even know the zoning code changed a couple years ago, and now the city was enforcing these changes on them. So it's how do we bring their voice into the conversation, especially like if it's a different language. I worked on the Houston sidewalks plan that was done 2 years ago. And we were doing community work in Spanish and Hindi and different other. We were doing like 5 different languages because we were working in Gulfton, which is the most diverse city community in Houston. We're working in Kashmir Gardens. So it was like, how do we bring these cover? And it's not just about speaking the language, but also being there. We have to be there sometimes after church, and then church was after 5 p.m. It wasn't like churches; it was like their temple, or I don't know what to
Yeah.
call it, the right term.
Yeah.
So we have to be there when they were available, not when the city or your boss will tell you, "Oh, you can go and do your community work at 2 p.m. on a Thursday," which is your hourly normal hourly hours, but sometimes you gotta be there when they're there in their community using the parks or having a movie night or even doing cleanups. So you have to be part of their community so they can trust you. That's something I've seen that, a
Yeah.
lot of people here in Houston, they hire outside consultants from like fancy places that because they won awards and blah blah blah. But it's also good to work with consultants that are in the city that they know the community leaders or that they've been interacting with these communities. So that's something that I believe that I still do. We still work. We don't go to every meeting, but we interact with a lot of communities in Gulfton, Northside, Spring Branch, East End, just to be part of the community in case of course, in case we do get work, but also to be as a meaningful person, being able to have change, see, and being part of the conversation that sometimes we don't see that's happening. Like you're mentioning, the state in Texas is changing their legislature to require, more diverse housing types and prevent people from subdividing properties in Houston or different cities. So how do we share that information with people? Or even the whole new change that happened of, you know, you being able to de-annex parts of the city
Yeah.
from your property. The developers know, my clients know, because they're in that circle. But some of my clients are considered quote unquote small, have 1,000 acres out in the county, and they're also a developer. You just don't know it because they're not part of the whole conversation. They just might be a one-time developer doing a neighborhood 10 years down the line when they're ready, but they're also important and they're also part of this conversation, especially when, right now Houston, they're trying to change the sidewalk ordinance, and there's been meetings happening and nobody knows about them. They're having like 5 meetings in a month and a half, and nobody knows about them. So I've been sharing it with people, but these meetings are happening only during the week. There's something happening on the weekends, but sometimes you gotta be out there in the community on a Sunday or whenever they're available, not when you're available as a city employee. I would
No,
say.
exactly. You need to go where they are. I mean, I hear a lot of complaints about that you always have the same people showing up. You need to not
Yeah.
also going, but you need to be strategic about it and learn about the culture, the history of the neighborhood, and learn how they interact. And the only way to do that, if you're there, if you're talking to individuals, to the stakeholders or members of the community who are very active, they can let you know
Yes.
who will be in support, who will need to convince, who needs to be on the table. It gets to the point that I mean, you say that they don't have your phone number. Some of the people in Gulftown, Magnolia, Ellive had my phone number, but
See?
that's the way you need to do to build that trust. And I'm okay with that. I mean, the end result is having those complete communities action plans and help them in the implementation process. But
Mhm.
that trust, you have to build the trust. And I was so careful when new people showed up, and when I say new people, like people who wants to do projects in the area. And I was very careful because I worked so hard to build that trust that I don't want anybody else to come here and destroy it just in 1 minute. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? So, but with that, well, Carlos, thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you,
Uh,
thank you.
for your knowledge, for sharing all the experiences you have. I think many people will find this inspiring, um, and learning more about Houston, how we fight the middle housing crisis. And I think that because of things that we're available to do, we may be, or Houston may be leading that fight. It's hard for me to say we, stop saying we, because I'm not really here.
Hey, you're always a Houstonian.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true.
I
But
would say, I mean, there was a new article that came out that saying Houston, I think from the Houston First Corporation, I believe they track a lot of the affordability and economic development happening in Houston. They said that Houston became more affordable in the last year. So I don't know if it's because of these ordinance changes or more housing being built, but there's more housing being built in Houston. There's more affordability happening comparison to other places.
and I think for developers, they're good to be in Texas. I mean, Texas. I saw an article in
Mhm.
CNU where they're saying that Texas, Dallas, Fort Worth area, and then Houston. I don't know how realistic it is, but in the next 50
Uh,
years, will be the new New York. I mean, will be so much development, and people are moving here, and there is going to be a demand for new housing, and the only way to do that is diversifying the houses that we have in Texas.
mhm.
Now, some people may
Yeah.
not like it, but that's what's happening. We're not, either you with it or you're going to lose that fight.
Yes. And I would definitely say, it was up to, I mean, the administration at the time, but to all the planning department staff and then the director at the time that made that happen, without
Yeah.
them pushing for it and then being there on the streets and actually making those meetings happening and making those changes, we wouldn't have what we have right now.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah.
I completely agree, and hopefully we can see more of those changes happening with the rest of Texas and hopefully the whole country.
Yes.
Any
I
last?
think all.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Look, I was gonna say, I think Austin changed their rules. I was talking to
Okay.
some people that were in Houston and they went to Austin. I was helping them with some of their languages, and they changed the rules to kind of copy, in a sense, what Houston was doing. I haven't seen it. I need to go check it out.
Yeah. Excuse me. I think they also reduced the minimal outside restriction.
Yes,
I think it's 2,500 now.
I'm not
Uh,
sure.
but I need to go back to Houston and see that development that you were showing me, the 1,200 square feet.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
it's under construction right now. Yeah, it's under construction. So as soon
All right.
as it's yeah, we're working with another one that's similar to that. So hopefully there'll be more like that.
Any last words? Any message you want to provide to maybe somebody who's at school right now and interested in become a planner?
I would say try I guess like anything in life, right? Try as many things as you can. Just try as many internships, and then just keep being inquisitive about everything. Ask, any doubts that you have. I think that's what being a planner is, like asking why this doesn't work, just like Houston did, and now it seems like it's working for more diversity in housing and more affordability. So asking why it works, why it doesn't work, and if it keeps working, improve it. So
All right. Well, thank you so much, Carlos. This was fun. I'm so happy how this ended up. And again, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the people who are watching or will be watching this. It will
yes,
be in LinkedIn and YouTube, and I'll provide in the comments Carlos' contact information, and also as well as the link for his website and the firm. What's the name of your firm, Carlos?
it's CGA Planning, and we're here in Houston. We do work. We've been doing work in Mexico, and now we're starting hopefully in Brazil. Hopefully in the next couple of months. But we're mostly in the Houston area, so we'll do the entire Houston area. We do a couple work in Dallas and Austin. So, but we're Houstonians at heart.
Yeah, that's true. And
Yeah,
maybe in a few months we can do this in Portuguese.
definitely. Why not?
Yeah, we'll see. All right. Well,
Or
thank you so much. Thank
Spanish.
you, Carlos. Oh, yeah, Spanish too, right? And thank you so much,
Yeah.
Carlos, and everybody else. You all have a
All
good
right.
night.
Thank you
See you
guys.
until next time.
Good night.